I am really excited about tonight because I know that we've done the last 2 weeks. Well, I think we started 2 weeks ago with basically just men that we talked to for one night. And then last week we started off, I think, with men, and then we just kind of mixed it up a little bit. Tonight we're going to do a little bit of both, where we're going to start off with the women, and then we're also going to hear some from the men. And for all of you that are attendees, like if you're not here on the panelist, like we can still, you can still chat. You can type your questions in the Q&A and that kind of thing. Oh, Netta. Here we go. Got one there. Okay. So, and I'll be looking at the different, I'll be just checking because I've got a couple other women that are going to be joining us tonight. Oh, Katie. Awesome. So now, can you hear me, Catherine?
I can.
Awesome. Yay.
I had to do it like 2 or 3 times.
That's okay. Now, what I was trying to ask you originally was, do you want to be called Catherine or Katie, or what do you want to be called?
Well, it doesn't matter. I prefer Catherine, but I actually like Deanne better. I'd go by my middle name.
Suzanne.
So either one. Deanne.
Okay. Anne?
Deanne.
Deanne. Okay. All right. Thank you. That lets me know that a lot. Deanne. Okay. All right. So I'm going to introduce some women that we have on the panel tonight. I'm kind of excited about this. And so what I want to do for each of the women that I've asked to be here tonight, I want you to introduce yourself, your name, and then we want to do your name, your age, your marital status, like if you've never been married, if you're divorced or widowed, same thing that we did with the men 2 weeks ago, okay? And then if you have kids and where you are living now, okay? And then after we do all the introductions, then we're going to go into just probably about 20 to 30 minute, probably about a 20-minute discussion on your experience in the church. And then I want to go into talking about communication and expectations, because last week sparked some other questions and feedback that I got during the week, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about that. So anyway, so first of all, though, I want you to go through it. All the ladies, if you would just unmute yourselves, and let's start off with Lori.
I mean,
there you go.
My name's Lori Harrell. I am 55, and I am widowed. Is that how much you wanted?
And then kids, how many kids do you have?
Oh, I have 4 children.
And where are you living right now?
I live in Decula, Georgia.
Right down the street from me.
Right down the street. Decula.
And you said you have 4 kids?
I do.
Okay. And you're in Georgia. Okay. All right. And then I'm seeing Charlene, one of my favorite people. All right. You're muted, Charlene. Oh, there you go. Okay. So,
hey everyone. My name is Charlene. I will be 47 next month. I've never been married. And right now I'm kind of in a limbo place of where I'm living. I just moved back to the country. And so I'm currently in Utah taking care of my parents who are going through some health issues and aging issues right now, and Vegas next month. So that's where I am.
Okay, but the exciting thing, tell them where you've been living.
Oh, I've been living in London for the last couple of years, which is really fun. And before that, I was in California for 17 years. So yeah. But London was very fun for sure. And if I could have stayed there, I definitely would have. So
yeah. Charlene's just a wonderful lady. All righty. And then I have Netta.
I'm Netta D'Andrea. I'm divorced. I have a One daughter, and I live in Florida.
Okay, and age?
Paula, don't you know it's not polite to ask the lady her age or her weight?
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. You should never ask a woman her age.
Okay, I'm 53.
Here, people. We're going to tell it like it is.
Okay, I'm 53.
Awesome. All right, and then I've got Deanna. Are you muted?
Do you mean
Yeah.
me, Paula?
Uh-huh. No, Deanne, sorry. Saying that
That's
wrong.
okay. My full name is Catherine Deanne, last name Branham. I go by either one. I am 39, just turned 39. I am divorced. I have no children, raising 2 nephews after my sister passed away, raising her children. And I am north of Columbia, South Carolina. I am from a small town called Ridgeway.
Awesome.
Where we have 1 stoplight and the smallest police station in the world.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Awesome, awesome. All right. Got some other people that have come on, so let me pull them in. All right, Jennifer, how are you doing? You found me, yay. Can you hear me? Jennifer? I don't know if she can hear me. She may not be able, oh, she can't hear me. I'll have to send her a message. All right, we'll get her technical issues worked out in a minute. So now what I want you to do, and if you would just please go in that order, is tell me some of your experiences in the church as a single woman. Good, bad, whatever. Just how do you feel like you've been perceived or in the ward or in the stake or whatever as a single woman in the church?
I would say that up until just recently, I was like the only single person in our ward.
Okay.
But as far as my experience, I can't really say that I feel, sometimes I feel kind of like I'm in my own boat, just simply because I've been the only single person there outside of some of the elderly women that are in their 80s. But I don't feel nobody makes me feel bad, or I feel uncomfortable when it comes time to when they have classes on marriage or how to strengthen your marriage, and like I'm the only single person there. So, I try to have a positive attitude about it and kind of look at it as what can be some of the takeaways, positive takeaways that I could take into another relationship, should I have one.
Okay, and for anybody joining us for the first time, I'm going to back up just a minute. So the whole purpose of the webinars that I do is just to get us all talking. For those of you that have been with me, we're kind of informal, and for those that are that feel like they can, we try to bring in some vulnerability and some real talk into this. I do ask, though, that there is no bashing of leaders or exes or whatever. We want to, if you want to share negative experiences, that's fine. All I'm asking is that, we just keep it kind of calm, and that you share what you've learned from it and that kind of thing. Because we want to just come together to basically, we're building friendships here, but we're also opening up communication between us. And we'll find out more a little later, some of what I'm talking about, because there's different, there's differences between us all, but there's always just there's a need for us to be able to open up communication here and talk just even among ourselves. Because whenever we go to an event, we don't necessarily get that opportunity to do so. And here you get to sit in the safety net of your own home or car and be able to participate or not participate, listen or not listen. It's totally up to you. But we just really want to open up communication and be able to bring us all together in this. So just to let you know, that's the purpose of all of this. And so there is a method to my madness here.
Paula, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yay, Jennifer. Okay, so we're going to back up just a minute. Jennifer, so what we're doing now is we're introducing all the panelists, and I'm having you share with everyone your name, your age, your marital status, if you've never been married, widowed, or divorced, how many kids you have, if you have kids, and where you're living now. So can you go ahead and share that with us?
Sure. I'm Jennifer Williams. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I'm 48 years old. I'm divorced twice, and I have 3 children aging from 27 to 24. And keep it on the DL, but I just found out I'm going to be a grandma. So super exciting. But yeah, I very much am happy to be talking on the panel tonight. Did I miss anything?
Awesome. Yeah. So in a minute, I'm going to go through have some of the other women also share some of your experiences, if you would like to, or your perceptions, if you will, of being in the church as a single woman. All right. So let's move to Charlene now.
So my experiences in the church have been varied as far as what type of community that I'm in. I find that if I'm in more of a very diverse, bigger city, people are accepting and I'm not treated as any different than anyone else. I'm just a sister in the ward, a member, part of the group. Whereas if I'm in a very small community like I am now, with very much a lack of diversity, people tend to not know what to do with a single sister in their midst, because I would say like 98% of the people in the ward are married. So that contributes to attitudes, I think. And also when I was younger in my 20s, my own attitude also contributes to my experience as well. So when I was in my 20s, my lack of security contributed to my perception of how I was being treated, where now I'm quite comfortable in my own skin and I really like who I am. And so I'm less affected by other people's reactions towards me as a single person, because I feel like I like my path that I'm on. I feel like I've made the right decisions in my life, that I'm straight with God. And so if someone perceives me as they feel uncomfortable with me not being married, I feel like that's kind of their problem. So I think that where I am in my own life has contributed to how I feel like others are perceiving me, and then how they're perceiving me varies by the type of community I'm in. So yeah, so when I'm in California, everyone is treated equally and loved and, accepted with arms open, and same with London. Whereas I'm in a very tiny community and small town where you can still hear cows at night, and mostly there are white people here, and so they aren't accepting of any kind of diversity, and that includes England.
Now, since you are in your 40s and you've never been married, do you feel like you're treated different than, say, a woman that has been divorced or widowed?
I think so, because I think they kind of, I would have to question. I do like to question people when I do like to question and clarify people and their intentions, so that I'm not misreading what they're trying to say to me, because
Okay.
Obviously I'll misread people, but I do sense that they feel like they kind of wonder, like, I've actually had people say, like, what's wrong with you? How come you've never been married? And I try to kindly let them know there's nothing wrong. Like, everyone has to do this in their own time. And for me, it's quite important. I'm looking for something very specific. So you have to kindly, like, charitably communicate to people when you hear that communicated, and sometimes it's hard because that strikes an emotional chord within you. So, but people have communicated very clearly, like, what's wrong with you? How come you've never been married? So I'm actually in my childhood ward right now with being at my parents', so these people have known me since I've been a child. So I hear that message quite a lot right now. So
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, and then let's go to Netta. Oh wait, Netta, you're muted. Okay. All right, Netta.
Okay. You wanted to know my experience in the church?
As a single woman.
As a single woman. So I've been divorced for 27 years. I have, I think, almost always had a calling during that time period. I have served mostly in primary. I've been a primary counselor with many different presidents. I've been secretary with many different presidents. I've been primary president before. I've been state primary president. I've had a lot of callings. So there's been a time where I was like, I wish I could just be under the radar and nobody know who I am. But
you're so good, Netta.
yeah, when I was without a calling, I was like, okay, just need to be under the radar for a while so I can cruise, and didn't happen. But yes, I've had negative experiences, but I've tried not to let them affect me or anything like that. So I don't know, I just kind of try to see the positive in everything.
Awesome. Netta's one that's serving on our committee for the mega conference too, by the way. She is awesome. All right. And then we have Deanne.
Well, to me, it's not hard. You know, I don't let what other people say bother me. If there's something that they want to say, they can say it to my face. If they say it behind my back, I don't care.
Now, Deanne, how long have you been divorced?
I have been divorced since 2004. I was in a very bad marriage. It was very short, but it was not a good marriage. So decided to get out of it. And as far as my local ward, most everybody is kin to me. Most everybody know me. They don't, put me down or anything. They accept me for being single. Um, and sometimes I question, what is wrong with me? That's the way sometimes I think. Um, but ultimately, I've learned since I've been to the temple a year ago, February. I take care of me. I, I handle me, and I know that Heavenly Father hears and answers prayers. There's a quote from Neil A. Maxwell that says, "Faith in God includes faith in His timing. Everything is in the Lord's timing. If it's meant for me to have someone now, I will have someone. It's not my time." And so I just, go take one day by day and do what I need to do.
Awesome. All right, and then let's go to Jennifer.
Well, for me, I think it was really hard when I still had kids at home because I still wanted to, I don't know, somehow have that family connection, and I felt like I was odd man out. But over the last probably 3.5 or 4 years, I've really come into my skin, let's say, and I just take it for what it is, and I can serve the Lord in my own way. And I find in the ward I'm in right now, they sometimes overutilize me because they feel like I'm single, and there's really no reason for me to have to be at home. My kids are grown and gone, and why don't I have more time to serve? And sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit overutilized. But I'm happy to serve, and I'm happy to do what the leaders feel like I need, because I can only grow from that. And it keeps me out of trouble.
Okay, awesome. And then I realized, and please forgive me, that I skipped Alyssa. I did not mean to skip Alyssa. But Alyssa, let's do a quick intro for you and then your perception or experiences with being a single woman in the church.
I thought I was getting lucky and being overlooked there.
No.
Well, I said, I'm Alyssa, 33 in Little Georgia, and I've never been married, no kids. And my perception, well.
Wait, how old are you?
I came to terms with
Somehow you broke up during that point. How old are you? You broke up during that point.
Sorry, 33.
33. Okay. All right, go ahead.
I'm
Perception.
I think mine's a little, well, I think it's different from most people just because I learned a long time ago just to let things roll. I don't go to church because of the people, because of my testimony. And I think that plays a huge part because it makes it more difficult when you're paying attention. So for me, when people have asked me a lot of times, just like when the other ladies here, why I'm not married. It's like, well, why were you married when you're 22? That was your time. And so I just says it's not my time. When the Lord says it is, then I'll be ready. And I'm just waiting. So I don't take anything personally. But you do get the looks, you do get the questions, but I've learned to just let it roll. I put my trust in Father and I go with what he has for me.
Okay. Now,
So I've never really had any problems with anybody.
okay, that's good. So, I've seen kind of a common thread when I'm hearing most of you, and that is, I don't let what other people think get to me. I've heard that a lot with a lot of you tonight. I wasn't so good, and I don't know that I am still as good. By nature, I'm a people pleaser. And so now I'm not saying that I'm all that way right now, but when it was easier for me to say, I don't let that bother me, even though sometimes it did. Do you guys ever feel like that maybe? Like you can say, that's not gonna bother me. But then, or I'm not gonna let that bother me. But then if somebody says something negative, you're kind of like, that really irritated me. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Occasionally.
Yeah, I totally do too. I think I have to force myself to realize that it's just not healthy for me to think that way, and just kind of put myself back in check and say it's not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of their lack of understanding of me.
Right.
I also think that if something really does bother you, I think it's important that we start conversations with people, because oftentimes, like for example, where I am now, they have kind of a limited view of the world because they are in a small town, and our perceptions of the world are just based on our life experience. So I do think if something bothers you, approach someone and let them know in a very kind and compassionate and assertive way, and let them know, hey, when you said this, I felt hurt by that. And by starting conversations with people, it can help them understand where you're coming from and then kind of help you lean in and help them get to know people that are outside, their normal circle of friends. And I actually think that's really, really healthy for people.
Sure. There are just some people though here in the South, I just don't really want to approach with that. My stepmother being one of those. We just gonna keep it good.
I feel like small town, like religious communities are similar in a lot of ways, no matter where you go. So I understand that.
Yeah. It's like the thought of approaching some people, I'm like, I'll just keep it. I'll just not say anything. I'm not gonna rock that boat. Anyway, sometimes I feel that way. So I want to go back to and any of you attendees. I know. So on the panelists you can see, but not everybody can be seen here. Because if you're here attending, we are grateful that you're here. If you want to come on as a panelist, just send me a quick note. I'm happy to add you on. If you want to just ask a question or make a comment, please use the chat box for a Q&A, and we'll do that as well. The other thing is, I want to go back to, and this, we can also open this up to the men in a minute, but I'm going to first ask the women. So Lori brought up the topic, and someone else has already commented in the chat that they also felt uncomfortable, like Emily Society or maybe in Sacrament Meeting, when topics of family and marriage comes up. So I can tell you, I totally get that. And I think most of us get that. Anyone want to share an experience with that?
I always view that opportunity as like, that's not where I am in my life right now, but someday that might be my time in life for those experiences.
Okay.
So if I listen really closely during this discussion, I hopefully will learn from all these women.
Mhm.
And that will hopefully help me to have a more successful relationship, or that I won't be like so surprised when it's, you know, this hard or whatever it is. I feel like I can learn about marriage and family, and that it will help me further if I pay attention during those lectures, because
Okay.
we're all at different phases in life. We all have to learn lessons at different times. So I just look at it as like, oh, let me learn as much as I can, so when I am in that phase of life, then I'll know so much more.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to that?
I agree with what she said. Perfectly.
All right, so I'm going to tell you of an experience I had early on when I was single, probably 10 plus years ago. I was sitting in Early Society, and everything was still kind of raw with me. And I sat in Early Society, and it was about marriage and family, and I was like, you know, not really feeling it, not really loving it, but it was during that Early Society meeting that I gained a testimony of my purpose in Early Society, as far as those topics are concerned anyway. Not like the whole purpose, but when it comes to those topics, how to deal with it. There was a woman in there who was saying, I know this is kind of petty, and I know that my husband loves me, but I just can't stand it when he leaves his dirty socks all over the floor. It just drives me insane. It's like it's right by the hamper. Why can't they just pick it up and put it in there? And like she went on about this for a couple of minutes, and I got annoyed. And I knew this couple. I don't know that I'll ever tell a story without choking up a little bit, so bear with me. But I said, raised my hand, I could not shut up anymore. Everybody knew what had happened to me. I was still in the same ward and everything. I mean, it was just really, really raw. And I said, I would give anything to have a man to love me like your husband loves you, and I would gladly pick up dirty socks. No woman ever complained about their husband in Early Society anymore if I was present. What I learned that day, and what they learned from me, was that you appreciate the big things and the little things and the whatever, and forget about the petty things, right? Because I just remember the rawness that I felt then, and how I could not believe that woman was complaining about flipping dirty socks. You know, I'm like, want to trade? I'll go pick up the dirty socks. And this man love me, and you go deal with all this stuff I'm dealing with. You know, so it's really something. But I have learned that through my story. I think I've saved a few marriages. There have been some women that will go home after I've been in Early Society and shared whatever thought or insight or whatever I had on the lesson, and they go home and they appreciate their husbands a little bit more. So, and I don't necessarily share my story. I just share my insight on that topic, like I just did. I said nothing about my story. I just said I would gladly pick up dirty socks. I'm like, in other words, I'm saying get over it. You know, you got something good. And things changed after that. I did notice, and there were women that would come up and thank me for different comments that I would make for the same things, that I didn't really think about it that way. I didn't really appreciate my husband in that way. And so I was able to go out and say, you know, do this, step up and appreciate them a little bit more. So that became my purpose during the family and marriage conversations. And I've been in different wards. There have been different women to complain about their husbands, and I've offered positive insight. I haven't gone out and put them down. I haven't really been that confrontational with anybody since then. But it does give different insight, and we have an insight that they don't have. And I think a lot of times we can go about a lesson on marriage, family, forgiveness, or whatever, right? Forgiveness was one of my hardest ones. I remember my really excited president early on was like, Paula, we're having a lesson on forgiveness. I'm like, I'm going to help out in the nursery today. That's where I'm going to be. So anyway, but now it's fine, because now I can also share different perception, different experiences, different whatever. And I think we have an insight that they need to hear. And rather than avoiding those topics, if we could just shift our mindsets just a little bit to go and embrace that topic from our perspective, our story, our insight, we've got things that we can teach them, that we can offer them, that they may not see, know, or do right now. And I think that's kind of huge. Thoughts on that? Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Do you want me to speak up on that?
Yes. Men or women? Come on.
One of the things I've learned, we talked about how we feel left out in the singles when we go back to church, and or if you're not married, so on and so forth. One thing we know is that all these principles are eternal principles. So sometimes we don't get those things on this side of the veil. We get them on the other side. And that's one of the things I've learned is, although it hurts sometimes on this side, it's an eternal principle that I have to learn anyway. That'll apply to me here and in the afterlife. So that part has not changed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a principle you're learning, not necessarily living at the time.
Right. Exactly. Great point. Love it. Anybody else want to share any insight on that one? All right. So last week, let's shift just a little bit here. I know there were a few of you on our last week's webinar, and we had a very interesting conversation about a few different things through the week. And I love getting feedback from people. I truly, truly love this. So keep bringing that in. But I have people that will send me messages about, hey, I wonder, about this question, if we could ask people about this, do they feel like this? Or, hey, here's this article that I think would be really cool to work into your webinars. Or I think this would be a great topic, right? So if you have any of that, please, I love that. That's awesome. But there was a woman watching a recording of our webinar, and she sent me this question. And this was during the men panel. So I'll ask the men first, and then I'll ask the women, okay? She said, a comment that I thought of watching yesterday's video, do men feel a pressure to be perfect, like perfectly churchy, provider, father, stepfather, supportive, etc.? Have they dated or even in marriage where they felt they could never be all that was needed or expected? So let's go to the men on that one. If you need me to repeat that, I'm happy to do that.
I can speak to that. I have felt that in the past a lot. And this is changing a little bit now with some of the recent changes in, the way the lessons are taught, stuff like that. But in priesthood, it's often, this is your duty. This is what you're supposed to do. You're not doing your home teaching or, now ministering. You're supposed to do this and that. And with the sisters, it's way more uplifting. And honestly, I get more out of the general women's session of conference than the general priesthood session. Now, like I said, it's been changing the last 2 years or so. I think they're realizing that the one size fits all, just bludgeon them with what they're supposed to be doing approach doesn't work with everybody. But yeah, I definitely feel like that, especially in my first marriage with my ex, I worked for a bank, and during the financial crisis, things got really, really bad. Like I almost lost my job a couple times and ended up basically doing, like three people's job. And I was working like 65 hours a week. And, I went to her and I was like trying to express how I was feeling. And she was like, I don't know what to say to you. And that just reinforced to me that you can't be weak. You can't be, you can't be the one that's, emotionally vulnerable. And I've since changed that through, experiences later, but definitely then I really felt that. And, I still feel like there are very high expectations of men in the church.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Dale is saying the Holy Ghost draws us to make spiritual progress and becomes more distant when we stall. I don't greatly feel pressure to perform from other mortals, but the Holy Ghost keeps the pressure on. Okay. Any other comments from that? Do you feel the pressure to be perfect?
I'd say we all feel the pressure to be perfect to a certain extent.
Okay.
I mean, in marriage and after marriage, even, you're expected to be that marvelous provider, whatever. It's expectations are this hard part that's control in a marriage. And even when you're single, trying to maintain your expectations is hard. Expectations are the part that'll bite you in the marriage and outside the marriage. And that's what will create some depression and create problems inside the marriage as well. For both, time, you're not spending enough time with me, or I'm not getting enough money to spend, we're not getting vacations. Where's our family time because you're working too much, and so on and so forth. Why isn't the house clean? Why can't I keep up with the, it's all those arguments are all expectation arguments, I think, in a lot of ways.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a minute.
Sorry for jumping the gun.
Okay, so anybody else?
I think we all feel lacking in some area, male or female. So, it's just something that we all have to, strive, to work on. And so, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it other than we just all have things we're working on. And I don't mean to simplify it. I just,
Okay.
Well, to speak to Chad's, I think it is that simple. I think that communication, especially when you are going into a relationship with somebody, is key, so that those expectations can be set. As simple as they may sound, they can be set, and the two of you guys work on those together so that you're able to set a more realistic, it's got to be realistic. I think that's when we get into the unsimplified version of that, is when we start asking or expecting more than what our partner is able to do, or when we do that to ourselves as well.
Awesome. And it looks like somebody has made a comment here, Paul. I said, I think the better way to put it is, does the past play a part? It plays a huge part, in my case, being a convert and one who's been inactive for many years. So that is something to think about too, the past playing a part in expectations and being perfect or whatever.
I was the same. I was inactive for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you can come back and you can, the past doesn't have to, interfere with what you're trying to do moving forward. I know it's something that's going to come and affect us, but with the help of Heavenly Father, we can get past that. I heard somebody talking earlier about, when I came back into the church and I'm talking to the bishop, trying to get everything resolved. I'm looking at all the pictures in the hallway, and I'm like, oh yeah, my family ward used to have that picture, and it's bringing back memories of me and my wife and my kids, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, because I'm going to be reminded. Well, that lasted less than a month later. I'm past that, so, I'm start feeling the Holy Ghost again, and, the Holy Ghost outweighs, the pain of what happened, so, I mean, I don't mean to sound, I don't know. I don't mean to sound not, empathetic to what, because everybody goes through ups and downs, with it. But I mean, that was one hurdle that I got past in the beginning of coming back again to the church, being active again. And so that kind of gave me hope that, hey, I got past this, and there's other hurdles to overcome,
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Chad. By the way, Chad, does your video work? Because we can't see. Does your video work? We can't see you.
No, this phone doesn't have video. I don't know.
Okay, no problem. Just wanted to see. Now, I wanted to say something. No problem. I just wanted to say something, though, on either your or Paul's comment about the past affecting you. I love the story of Lot and his wife. Are you guys familiar with that story?
Yes.
So, for whatever, for the reasons that they needed to leave, right? They had to get everything. They had to get their family. They had to get everything and just leave and just kind of get out, right? So when they left, what were they told? Don't look back.
Yes.
Right? They were told, don't look back. Just keep moving forward. Don't look back. But one person could not resist. Do you remember who that was?
His wife.
Lot's wife. She couldn't resist. She wanted to see what was going to happen to everything they had back there. She wanted to see. She just could not stand it. And then she was pretty much turned to dust. She just had to obey that one thing. Don't look back. I'm going to tell you the same thing. It's easier said than done. I get that, because you've got to deal with your stuff, right? You've got to deal with the past to be able to move forward. But when you have, leave it back there. Don't let Satan keep bringing it back up. I mean, trust me, I'm 12 years after the fact of, when everything happened with our separation and everything. And there are days it's like inside my head, some memory, something will keep popping up, and I've got to be like getting it out. So, it doesn't really affect what I do or whatever. It doesn't bring me down. It's just I recognize that I've got to get that thought out, because we cannot look back. We can't keep feeling the guilt over and over and over. We can't keep feeling the regret over and over and over, or the remorse or whatever that's holding you back. Because when you do, you cannot move forward. And we've got to be able to move forward. So no matter what was in your past, it's in your past. You can't fix that. You can't go back and redo that. You can do something, though, about today, and you can do something about your future. And that's just it. And then bring people into your life that, that will embrace you, that will encourage you, that will fellowship you. Or you can bring people in your life that'll bring you down. Completely up to you, whatever you feel like you deserve. Because I do know that we don't get what we think we deserve. We get who we think we are. I mean, that's pretty much what it's going to boil down to. We get what we feel like we deserve. I hope that makes sense. There's a better quote somewhere. I'm sure I can find it online. But basically, you can go about saying, I deserve this because I did da-da-da-da-da. But if you're still dealing with the insecurities, if you're still dealing with the regret, if you're still beating yourself up in your head, you're going to get what you feel like you deserve. So if you feel like you're worthless, you're going to attract somebody that's going to make you feel worthless. Does that make sense? So when it comes to expectations and communication, that is something that is very, very critical. Is that you're in a place of knowing who you are, of feeling grounded, and knowing what you feel like you deserve. I know as women, we battle that more than anybody else, I think, overall, right? Like, I'm sure men do it as well, don't get me wrong. And men, I definitely want to hear from you. But I know women, thank you, Alyssa, we accept the love we think we deserve. Thank you for looking that up for me. Anyway, so there are women that will say, why is it that I attract somebody that's abusive to me emotionally? Well, I want you to write down things that you say to yourself in a given day, week, whatever, right? So I want you to just write them down. If you think you're overweight, if you think you're not smart, if you think you're not attractive, if you think you're whatever negative thought you think you have, write it down, men and women. Then I want you to envision, do not actually do this, I want you to envision saying those same words to your daughter or to a friend. Would you do that? I wouldn't, right? There's no way I'm going to go and, say something like that. And I went through this early, like a few years back, this whole personal development piece and realizing that. And so then I had to take some time and reset what I said to myself. Your self-talk matters because your self-talk is what's going to attract what you feel like you deserve. So if you feel like you can't attract whatever that you want to feel like you deserve, right? Think about that. That's something to consider. And that's just a step. There's other things to do as well. I have somebody here that says, how do you get past the past? I'm struggling big time. I can't get, hold on. Somebody else added in a chat. I can't get past what I feel I deserve for my part of the failure of my marriage. Okay. And so be thinking on that for a minute. And then Paul says, I totally get what you're saying about, and you are bringing up a great point. However, here's my question. For someone who's been divorced multiple times, when going into a new relationship, the past failed marriages does that not play a huge factor where the other person you're trying to date will use as a determination as to whether you are worth dating, getting to know, and or possibility in the future? Okay, so I know I've let this be known on webinars before. I've been married 3 times. Okay, I have had a man literally say, well, I don't want to be number 4. And he knew what I went through with the other 3. He knew that I owned the fact that I attracted abusive men and had to learn how not to do that. Okay. And that hurt. Because it wasn't him. But he also was not somebody I needed to spend time around, because if he thought that, he could bring that up over and over and over again. I don't want to be with somebody like that, right? So, Paul, I'm sorry that could play a part. That could be a possibility. There are men or women that don't want to date somebody who's been married multiple times. That's on them. That's their expectation, and that's okay. They can have that expectation. You need to move on to the person that's okay with marrying somebody or being with somebody that has been married multiple times. Looks like Trevor is raising his hand. All right, Trevor, I'm putting you on as a panelist. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Paula, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a brother that's in that situation. He's been married multiple times, and he actually doesn't feel like anyone will accept him because he's been married so many times. But I think sometimes, my degrees are all in science, and so I'm someone who I recognize patterns for a living. That's what I do. Right. So I think that the best thing that people could do is try to assess what are your patterns and see what's tripping you up. And then, like for me, I didn't grow up in a family where we communicated well. And so I have to figure out, like, how do I communicate better in relationships, and whether that's having a conversation with, like, how do you communicate this? How do you communicate assertively? And whether that's that you need to read a book about how to do that, whether that's you go to some kind of seminar. I think that the best thing you could do is improve your skill set in an area where you're weak, so that you're not repeating the same pattern over and over again. Because from a woman's standpoint, if I see that even if a guy's been married multiple times, if he's worked really hard to fix the patterns that were broken in the previous marriages, then you see that it's not going to be a repeat sort of thing. Am I communicating that well?
Yes.
I don't know if I'm
That's awesome.
because
Thank you,
the
Charlene.
goal is for each of us to become more like Christ. And so to do that, we have to step outside of our comfort zone, assess, like, how can we get better? So, like, for me, I'm always like saying, like, oh, I noticed I'm not doing this well. So I need to find out who's doing it well and figure out how to do it like them a little bit better, or, like, find out how to have more appropriate boundaries, or assertively communicate, or whatever each of our weaknesses in. We need to figure out how to improve those, so that then our relationships are better.
Okay.
And then naturally, I think we'll attract the kind of person that are better for us, because we're constantly being more like Christ. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome. I want to go back to what Elizabeth said. How do you get past the past? Elizabeth, if you don't mind me asking, how long have you been single? If you can just put it in the chat box, or if you don't mind me adding you to the panelists, I can do that as well. Okay, since 2016. So you're pretty new. I call that kind of new, being single. That's like 2 or 3 years, and usually about the 5-year mark is when you can, at least for me. I don't know what you've been through, but for me, I had to reach the 5-year mark. Before I started feeling like I was somewhat normal in the head. And but I went through years of therapy too. So, but what I'm going to suggest that you do, Elizabeth, is write down, like journal, or just list, like I use my yellow pad here, but whatever you want to do, journal, whatever, however you need to write or type on the computer or whatever, what it is that you're struggling with, like write it down. And then what I want you to do, and this could be for anybody, anything that you feel like you're still processing in the past, okay? Write it down. And then what I want you to do, for those of you that have heard my webinar about yellow pad prayer, I think I've shared it a couple of times. You sit there with that, whatever you're writing on. Normally I recommend a yellow pad or something like that. And then you pray about it. And you take each one of those things to the Lord. I want you to start there. And send me an email or whatever if you have other questions, but let's just start there, because I don't want to get too much into this tonight, just because I am not a therapist. I'm just sharing with you my insight and experience and whatever that I've had being single all these years, and things I have learned through my experiences. So I totally get though what you're feeling, Elizabeth, because I have been there, feeling like I deserve, or feel like I deserve anything good because of what happened. I held on to guilt for so long. It was like just insane how long I held on to the guilt. So yeah. And Trevor, I didn't bring you in as a panelist just because tonight we just had more of a smaller group. We're doing mainly women tonight, but hold on, I'm going to get to your thought in a minute. Linda says, Elizabeth, believe the gospel of Jesus Christ. The atonement is for every day. Do some sort of symbolic burning of your perceived failures, much like I just said, yeah, to offer it up to the Lord. It may still, hold on. Somebody else has another comment, then that bumps it up. It may still have consequences, but the stronger you have to be armed with the word of God to keep looking forward. Satan wants to tear you down, destroy you. Not just your home, but even your future home. It's a real fight, but you can overcome it. You're a beloved daughter of Heavenly Father. We confess, and He remembers it no more. I, too, have failures of the past. I know it's hard, but I know it's possible to move forward. Okay, and Trevor says, this is my own personal feeling since it helped me in my own personal experience. For me, what helped with getting over my concern of dealing with the past was realizing that there were things that I could have done better. it wouldn't have saved the marriage. Learn and take that knowledge into the next relationship. Great advice. Okay, and then Lori, you have a comment?
Well, I was going to say, especially going based on what Elizabeth said, is, you know, allowing yourself to give yourself positive affirmations, right? Whether you're writing it on your mirror in the bathroom. Something my sister and I started a couple weeks ago is every day we will text each other. We started, I started writing it in a journal, and then I would just take a picture of it and send it to her. And then I got kind of lazy, so now I just text it to her. Is every day when I start my day is writing 5 things that I am grateful for. And putting on there something that I want to accomplish for the day, whether it's taking a bag to Goodwill or going through a box of something that I have in my living room or bedroom that I keep putting off. And then, so it's 5 things that I'm grateful for, a goal of something that you're going to do, and then something that I'm going to, an act of kindness, whether it's taking someone to lunch or giving, you know, for me, it's taking my kids to school. I kind of put that on my list of something nice that I've done for someone, or whether it's paying a compliment to someone at work. So doing those every single day, which incorporates more of a positive self-worth internally.
Okay, awesome. That is wonderful. I actually wrote that down. I think I might start doing that. That's some great advice. I hope that helps.
And you know,
go ahead.
In one of our lessons today that we were talking about, and I think men and women alike, I think everybody would agree that, you know, especially, I mean, all of us on this call are all in the same boat, right? We're all single. We're all searching for, I mean, I've said this before, the ultimate goal is to find someone to be in our life, feel unconditionally loved. I think that we all have a tendency to kind of internalize on how do we fall short. We fall short every day, and we focus on the negative things instead of the positive things that we're doing for ourselves and for other people.
Well, I want to build on that too, because and let's have a conversation about this if you guys are okay with this, because I think this will lead in greatly to our expectation conversation. So for those that are, no, not everyone is looking for someone to marry. There are some that are. Oh, you're welcome, Elizabeth. I hope that we were able to help in some way. But if, you know, for those that are, if you are looking for someone to love you unconditionally, what does that look like? Can you tell me some things that would look like to you?
Are you asking anyone?
Anyone, everyone. What does that look like?
So for me, unconditional love is somebody who's accepting, who's not judgmental.
Do you feel like you accept everyone and that you're non-judgmental?
I strive very hard to be non-judgmental. I don't feel like it's my job to judge others.
Okay, awesome. Just thought I'd throw that out there, but I hope you don't mind me asking that way. But no, I mean, like a lot of times our expectations, you know, I just want to make sure I'm not always accepting and I'm not always non-judgmental. There are some things I'm not okay with. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking that. I feel like by nature I'm a loving person, but that's not always my strong suit. Okay, go ahead. Anyone else? What does that look like to you?
Well, I think like you said, I think some people can have certain things that it's harder for them to overlook than others, and it may be based on their own experiences.
Right. Well, that's why I want you to share with me, what does it look like to you? Because I want to talk about this. This is why I want men and women in here chatting, because we all have different visions of what it's going to look like, right? So I want to talk about, what does it look like to you? I love that Lori said, I want somebody accepting and non-judgmental. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Next person. Lori, do you have other things that it looks like?
Well, okay, this call is about everybody being vulnerable, right?
Right, I know, right?
Not one of my greater suits or attributes, okay?
I understand. I get it.
So I will just throw this out there. I say unconditional simply because, and I don't share this with everybody,
Mhm.
and hopefully you won't be falling off your chair when I get done with this little conversation.
Yeah.
So I have 4 children, right? I've got 2 older children, 2 younger children. So my kids are 26, 25, this week 16, and then in a couple months 15. So I have 2 sets of kids, 9 years in between. First husband, very abusive, police officer, controlling. It became physical, and then I was out. I chose, and I had a bishop say to me one time, you know, I feel so sorry for you to be a single person. And I quickly let him know that, you know what, that was my choice. I chose to be single. I knew that being single was going to be hard. I knew that. I stayed in the marriage way longer than I should have, only because I was trying to convince myself that I did not want my children to already be a statistic in society of a divorced family, right?
Mhm.
So I chose that. So I let my bishop know that, you know, don't feel pity because I chose this. I knew being a single mom would be hard, but staying in an abusive relationship is even harder. I made this choice and I'm okay with that. I know that there are consequences and I'm willing to do that.
Right.
So 9 years later, maybe a little longer, I meet the father of my 2 youngest children, and I became a member after my divorce, my first divorce. So I became a member, and I ended up having 2 children out of wedlock.
Mhm.
Now, he and I were together for 10 years, and then he passed away. He had real hangups about being married, and I didn't really realize in those 10 years that we were together, he really did not want me to be very close to his family. I internalized it. I thought maybe it was me. I just couldn't put my finger on it until he passed away. And then I realized just how jacked up his family is. You know, I think everybody comes from dysfunction of some sort, right?
Mhm.
I kind of feel like, and it's been 8 years since he's been gone, I feel like I know better. First year of him being gone, I understood him better than I did the 10 years we were together. But I will say, going back to the church, I will say that I have been blessed that I've not been judged for not being married to someone. He was not a member. He didn't care if I went to church, took the kids and stuff like that, but I was never judged for that.
Right.
And again, I kind of feel very blessed with that. But there are people that have put judgment on the fact that, you know, when I say people in judgment, you know, about 3 years ago, I did the whole LDS singles, you know, LDS planet.
Mhm.
And as you're talking to people and you share your story, right, that getting to know you piece,
Mhm.
I was amazed at how many men were so put off at the fact that I was a member and had 2 children out of wedlock and called me a hypocrite.
Oh my goodness.
So, you know, somebody's wanting to send me a picture of their private parts, and that's okay, but then calls me a hypocrite because I had 2 children out of wedlock. So I don't know if he felt like that gave him passage. It was really weird, but
Right.
so that's something that I share with everybody.
Sure.
It has been a long haul with 8 years being a single mom, but you know, I always tell my kids, and I'm a big believer in, we all are where we're at based on decisions we make, whether they're good or really crappy decisions.
Right.
They're ours and we have to own them, right? So if you see in the morning, you have the opportunity to change it up, right?
Right.
Change what don't like, change what, and that's why for me, positive affirmations on your bathroom mirror, we all stand in front of it in the morning, brushing our teeth, getting ready for work. That is a wonderful place to start in the morning, to start your day with reminding yourself, whether you're a man or a woman, that we are prized children of God. He made us special. He made us specifically the way we are, and he made us that way for a reason, right? Sometimes we don't always, sorry, my dog. No.
Love it. No, you're good. I
Most
love that though,
times
Lori.
we don't understand.
I love that you clarified your accepting and communication. That totally makes sense, because I totally get that. I mean, dang, there are, I've got what I call my 5 whammies, and I need somebody to be accepting of those, and it's all my past kind of thing. It just is what it is, and so I totally get that. Whereas, someone else could take that to mean, oh, well, I want you to accept everything that I do. So I love that. And that's going to bring us in a few minutes to communication. So that's going to be awesome too.
Well, and it's very difficult, because one of the things you asked us when we first got on was, our name, how many children we have, and our status, right? Well, Jim and I weren't really married. We were together for 10 years. So does that put me in the widow spot, or does it put me in the divorce spot from 20 some years ago? Do you just, so for me, that's kind of a hard thing, because I don't want to be deceptive to people. I don't want to be dishonest. Right. But it's fear of acceptance, right?
Sure.
Especially in the Mormon realm of, oh my gosh, you were with somebody for 10 years that wasn't a member, and you had 2 children.
Right. Fear. Oh my laws. We could spend 2 hours or more talking about fear. So
sorry, guys.
I get that. Okay.
Hopefully nobody has fallen off their chair.
That's okay. Now let's go back just a minute here, and I want to hear from others as well about what feeling unconditional love looks like to you, or being in a healthy relationship. What does that look like to you?
I can comment, Paula.
What was that?
I can comment about that for me personally.
Okay.
So for me personally, I'm a very strong woman. So for me, my highest value is honesty and integrity. Right. So I need a man that's willing to stand in his own power at my side, and so love is not walking in front of me or not walking behind me, but just standing in his power and owning his power, because I already own mine. And so standing in his own power at my side and being willing to be honest. And that means not ever blaming or shaming, but, I feel like the central tenet of the gospel is the atonement. And so if Christ is willing to forgive me, I have to forgive other people with whom I'm in a relationship. And I want them to do the same. So part of being honest is saying like, hey, I really screwed up. I did this wrong. And I want someone who's willing to do the same thing. Like, I communicated poorly. I was yelling, whatever. I'm so sorry. And then just say, I'm sorry. And then you start the forgiveness process in your relationship. And it makes things a little bit easier when someone's willing to admit and be honest about what they did wrong, and that the other person's also willing to be forgiving, because that's the whole central tenet of the gospel is the atonement and forgiveness. And so part for me of unconditional love is I have loads of failings and loads of faults, and so I need someone who's forgiving of all my mess, and that I likewise can do the same for them, and that we can be honest when we screw up and make mistakes. And so that's kind of a piece of what it looks like to me. So
thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have anything else to add to that?
Paula, I think for me, I have very high expectations on myself. And I think when I start talking to men, I look at their potential versus who they actually are. And that tends to get me in trouble, because I then start having expectations on their potential. And so for me, I want somebody that has high expectations on themselves, that is okay with constantly bettering themselves, because I try to better myself on a regular basis. I am way short on being, great even, but I try really hard, and I'm really hard on myself. And I think for me, having somebody that's equally yoked in that is interested and constantly working on themselves and very aware of, I don't know how to put that other than I think that it's important that me personally has somebody that has very high expectations on themselves. And that's across the board. That's religious, that's earning potential, that's, how we behave in a relationship. That goes across the board for me. Like, I want to be the best wife someday when I find the person that I feel is a good fit for me. And I want them to feel like I'm worthy of being in that spot for them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So Dell here made a comment. He says, unconditional love, accepting me for who I am. Most women marry a man and then set out about changing him into the man they want. Also, every marriage has some power sharing, bargain between spouses. Unconditional love and sharing power fairly, even though that takes a lot of work and communication. So then Paul said, unconditional love, that's a broad subject. I think it can be something along the lines of be able as well as willing to love and accept the person for who they are, while at the same time being able to continuously learn and grow with that person. To me, that's what love is supposed to be, something that has to be able to be kept alive and grow each day, each and every day. It's waking up each and every day and not failing to let your spouse know just how much he or she is appreciated, adored, and loved each day. Not getting all worked up over the small and little things, like how you mentioned about the one sister-in-law who's getting all worked up about having to pick up socks. Not letting these types of things become more than what they really are. And then Paul says, I think it's the little things that makes the other person feel special and loved, or rather begins with the little things. Fred also added in a book, Self-Talk Solution, if you guys want to check the chat on that one. So yeah, I mean, I can see that too, Jennifer. I actually went out with a man recently that he alluded to the fact that, well, he just needed a woman in his life to help him be the man that he needs to be. And I'm like, but I see, and I don't, and it's just me, I think it's just the differences between us, because not all women are the same, man. It's not like we get a handbook on us. We're all different. But so with me, I want a man where he is, right? Like I don't look at the man and think, oh, I need to change that about him, or oh, I can do this, whenever. I just don't. I don't really look at potential. I don't really know what you mean by potential, Jennifer. Maybe we can clarify that. But for me, I don't really look at who he could be, because I know that people change. I've experienced that in my prior marriages. I want to look at where he is now and what he's doing now to stay close to the Lord, to how he lives his day, how he handles stress, how he deals with kids, how he deals with whatever, right? Like, I want to see where he's at right now, because I don't plan to go into a marriage to change a man. Not my goal.
I actually am somewhere in between the two of you, though, because I actually can see what Jennifer does.
All right, totally. I mean, it makes
I
sense.
think Heavenly Father sees potential in all of us, which is what Jennifer has seen, and I actually do the same thing when I'm dating someone. I see that vision that Jennifer sees, which I think is how Heavenly Father sees us.
Right.
But then I do what you do, which is I want to know what he's doing right now. But I do, like Jennifer said, I do want to see that he is making strides. In the end, we all have to become like Jesus. So if he's not making strides to become a better person every day, he's not doing the same thing I'm doing. So we're not on the same page, but then he's kind of not trying to reach that end goal at the same time. I have no desire to change a man. I don't want to be anyone's mother. Like, I don't want to be a husband's mother. That's his job, and he has to stand before God and answer for his things. I answer for only mine. But I am like Jennifer, where I do see potential, and I do want to see someone taking action, because that's what I'm doing every day, and I'm going to drive him crazy if he's not doing the same thing for himself. So I'm kind of in between the two of you, where I base it based on who he is now, and accept him for who he is now. But I do want to see that he's like always trying to become a slightly better person, because that's our goal here on earth, is to become like Christ. So
Right.
I'm in between the two of you.
So
Yeah.
Jennifer, can you clarify that for me then? When you said what did you say? You said something about you see the potential of who they can be, and then you say focus on that one.
Right. So for me, I think that Charlene did a great job of describing that. I think I want to, like, I can see who they can be. And I would love to find the person that I could see that and see them working towards that. Okay. Instead, I think I have chosen in the past that I have seen that potential and have hoped that for them. I've not wanted to change them. Okay. But I think I went into the relationships thinking that they were going to work as hard every day as I work every day. And I think some of that's just me being naive. I mean, I was 19 the first time I got married, and second time, that's all I knew. So I understand the mistakes that I've made. I mean, I married him way too soon after my divorce, and it is what it is. And I don't beat myself up about that, because I made the mistake and I can't go back and change anything now. And it's made me a better person because I have made those mistakes.
Makes sense. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Communication is so key. Okay. Men and women, I want to open this up to you. It looks like Lori had her hand raised.
Well, I just want to add one more thing, and then I promise I'll stop talking.
No problem.
I appreciate what Charlene and Jennifer, where they're coming from, their points of view. And I think my first thought was, when I raised my hand, was I don't think that we can put men in a separate bucket than women, because when we say that, women want to change men or men want to change women, I think it's both on the same even keel, right? Because it's based on what we all experience and what we've experienced in our past. When I hear Charlene and Jennifer talk, I understand exactly what they're coming from, but I think it also derives from how strong of a woman are you, right? When you have high expectations for yourself and you're a type A personality, again, I can only speak for myself. I used to be a manager, and I used to really struggle with holding my staff accountable and holding them to a higher expectation. And my manager had to pull me in and say, look, you cannot hold your staff at the same accountability and hold them to a higher standard like yours. And I'm like, why? So I was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So it was learning how to, for me, and this is kind of where it changed for me, learning how to say to a staff member, as your manager, outside of coming to your house and pulling you out of bed, what can I do to help you get to work on time? Now, part of me was like, I should not have to do that. That's because I'm a very strong, independent, reliable individual. So I too kind of look at that I want someone who can hold their own. I don't want to have to financially, in the beginning of a relationship, financially be responsible for a man in my life. I want someone to be strong. I want them to know how to make decisions. I want them to be strong like I am. Of course, again, that has worked against me too, where I've had men say to me, you're too strong, you're too independent. Men do not like independent women. And my thought on that is,
okay. So let's go back to, a lot of that can go back to that whole, do you feel like, you need to be perfect? Because there are some people, or some men or women, that could be listening to this and going, oh my goodness, I just don't think I could ever do that kind of thing. Right? Much like what you were talking about with your staff. But yeah, and I think that we do all just come from, because our experiences give us so many different perceptions, right? So are there any of you, other men or women, that want to share any thoughts that haven't shared with us yet?
Paula, can I just add to that, that I think that what I'm looking for now is that person that is also type A, that is willing to come to me and speak to me in a very vulnerable manner and say, these are the things that I'm working on, and will allow me to help them, as well
Okay.
as me being vulnerable to them and saying,
Right.
these are the things I'm working on. I
Yeah.
think that in the past, I've always just been, I've got to be this tough woman. I've got to hold it all together. I've had, you know, a lot of times where I've been a single mom, and it is hard for me to kind of drop that down and just be very vulnerable with a man and say, okay, I'm welcoming you in. I want you to help me. And so that is hard for me, but that's the type of relationship, that's the level of comfort that I want to have with my special somebody that I choose to.
Okay. All right, and
Sorry
Trevor.
about that I choose to spend the rest of my life.
All right. Well, if you're okay with it, and if you can, I'm just going to bump you up to a panelist so that you can share your thoughts, because it sounds like you've got some good ones. Trevor, I'm going to, I think I unmuted you. You had some thoughts to share?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things that I wanted to just share a couple of things about. I know there's some discussion earlier about unconditional love, and whether this is right or not, I guess I don't know for sure, but this is my own feeling about it. We are not God, and we will not have unconditional love. That's sad, but I think that's a reality.
No, Trevor, I don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love my children unconditionally. Now, they drive me crazy some days, and I may not like them some days, but I love them with my heart and soul.
Right. So I'm just sharing what my personal opinion is.
Yeah, all right.
I think I'll put it this way: the unconditional love is what created the atonement, right? And the prophet said that we can't comprehend the atonement. And I feel like if we could truly have unconditional love, then we should be able to comprehend the atonement. And so I'm not trying to get in a debate or discussion about this or anything, but I will share my own personal opinion that we are imperfect beings, and I don't believe we are capable of understanding and comprehending what I personally believe unconditional love is. Whether that's right or wrong, maybe isn't so important, but maybe it is. But I felt like that was something important to share because I feel very strongly about that. I just don't think we are personally capable. I know we say we are and stuff, but and I'm not here to debate whether people do or don't. I guess we'll just leave it at this. I won't have unconditional love.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification of that one. Okay.
If I could just share something else also real quick, Paula. You know, we had this hiking trip. It was really great. We had a conversation, and I was talking to someone about it, and I hear this. Literally, it seems to come out every time. Women want this. Men want this. All the men want this. All the women want this. And I don't think that's true because I know men that have different feelings than I do. And I've talked to different women, and women have different feelings about different things that other women have. So I think you just need to find people that have the same feeling about something as you do, right? Someone who believes a certain thing about the gospel that maybe I will not be in alignment with, we won't work well together.
Exactly, and that we actually talked about a few weeks back when we were talking about the 5 things that we need to agree on, and then all of the details with that. So that's awesome. You're right, and you do need to work out all the little things because we are all different. I completely agree with that. But right now we're just kind of talking about what it looks like for you, right? So I just wanted some general things, and I love that you brought that up. That is awesome, because then that brings us back to especially those top 5 things that we all need to agree on. If you're new and haven't watched it, I'll just share them real quick. Religion, parenting, money, recreation, and intimacy. You've got to agree on those 5 things to be able to gel a healthy relationship, okay? And then the details associated with those. And it won't line up perfectly, but if it's something that you can accept, like Jennifer brought up and Lori brought up, of being accepting with that's awesome. And then you'll have a very healthy, happy relationship. Okay. So I love this conversation. Anyway, first, anybody else have any other thoughts on this before we move on? Paul, did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up? I don't even see you. Let's see.
Hey, Paula.
Yeah, hey.
This is Fred.
Hey, Fred.
I like your 5 points there. I think religion is having been through a divorce many years ago, and I was married to a woman. Excuse me. She left the church, so I know what it's like to live with a unfaithful member, I guess you'd say. And so I really agree with that. And I think it's, if you can find a reasonably close compromise to those 4 points, I think there can be success. I was dating a woman a while back, and they were saying, well, we just get along so wonderful. It's just so great. This is wonderful. And there was no commitment really there, just a good friend relationship. And I said, well, let me tell you why that is. That's because you're not writing checks on my checkbook, and I'm not trying to tell you how to raise your kids. So,
right.
And it never developed anything permanent, and maybe that was why. I don't know. But I do agree. You have to have you have to have those 4 points of agreement for things to work well. But they're never going to be 5. What was the 5th one?
Religion, parenting, money, recreation, and intimacy.
Okay. Yeah, okay, recreation. Okay, I got you. Still, I like that.
That's something fun to do together.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was the intimacy part. I forgot. I don't know. Sorry. But, and also the idea of this perfect, there's nothing's going to be perfect, let me tell you. But you can have, or are close to have, unconditional love. I have 6 children, and several of them are not active. And as they became less active, they began to distance themselves from me because they figured, well, I don't fit what he thinks is good anymore. And it took me a while, and us a while, a few years, to where they realized that, you know what? I don't care what you do. I love you. I love you. You're my son. You're my daughter. And as they began, maybe I was conveying that, or they were conveying, whatever, as we began to establish that understanding, our relationship really grew tremendously. So that's kind of an extreme side, I guess. But with a partner, there's going to be differences, and if we can just accept them, do the best we can, and ask for the Lord's guidance, I really believe we can do that. We can make it happen.
Right.
But there's never going to be a perfect mate.
Right. Okay. Paul, can you hear me now? Okay. Do you want to share any thoughts here, or do you want me to just read your chat?
No.
Okay. So Paul earlier, see if I can get back to that, said, I think earlier there was some generalities, I guess, of men and women. He said, independent woman is one that to me can carry her weight rather than expecting a man to carry all the weight and make the relationship work. So, and then Dale had a comment that was to all of us, so you guys can read that, about, back in the 60s. Oh, the microphone on his phone doesn't work. Okay. So any other thoughts on communication and expectations before we move on to communication? Oh, Lori says, I think as we get older, our desires change. Is what we're looking for. Absolutely. Well, you know, experience is a great teacher, right? Okay, so let's talk about communication for a few minutes. And then we'll wrap this up and we'll go into next week with a little bit more to go into, which I'm kind of excited about. So with communication, last week, which I totally loved this conversation. I hope you guys got stuff out of it. But if you will remember, Lori and Roger were talking about a same phrase. And I just thought it was so awesome, right? Like, hold on. Okay, so they were talking about the phrase, and we heard a lot, I've even said it myself, I don't need a man, but I want a man, okay? And so then we got off on what that word need meant for everybody, right? So I thought that was just so awesome that we were able to open up that communication. Well, through the week, I got into a conversation with someone about different words that when we communicate it to a man or to a woman, and he's on here tonight, and maybe he'll share some insight, I don't know. But anyway, but we were talking about things that a woman says to a man or a man says to a woman and what they mean. And one of them was when I said, oh man, that is just so sweet. And he's like, oh, Paula. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that was just so sweet that you said that, or that you did that. I don't remember what it was about now. And he's like, Paula, every time you tell a man that he's sweet, you're friend zoning him. And I'm like, what? No, I'm telling him that it was thoughtful, that it was nice, that it was kind, that I appreciate that, right? But that's not what he heard, or what he felt, I guess. He's feeling, she wants me for a friend. And I thought, okay, I didn't really realize that. So then I thought about it, because then the next day I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, well, do I have a word? And oh, did I have words? I have a couple of words that I can't stand being called. And that is, number one is cute. I can't stand it when a man tells me that I'm cute. I'm a 51-year-old grown woman. Babies are cute. Puppies are cute. Kittens are cute. But I feel like when a man tells me I'm cute, I just went down to being a little girl. And I'm like, ah. So instead, I would like to hear, wow, that looks good on you. Or, wow, that's beautiful. Or, you look awesome. You look amazing. Whatever. But don't tell me I'm cute. You know, that's complete friend zoning me. I'm a grown woman. I am not cute. Anyway, so another one is I cannot stand it for a man to use the word hot in describing a woman, because it sexualizes her. And to me, it totally devalues and disrespects her as a woman. So to me, whenever a man goes, I'm just looking for a hot babe, how I'm burning up inside. Because I'm like, that totally devalues that woman and who she is and what she is or whatever. Now, I'm not saying you can't say that to your spouse, but to describe a woman in general, that's wrong to me, my opinion. Gospel according to Paula, okay? You know, you communicate how you want to communicate. I'm just telling you that there are certain words, certain triggers that are like, but when I have talked to a couple of other men about the word cute, they were also surprised. What? That's not a good thing to say to a woman. I'm like, now, do other women here agree with me? Are those words that bother you as well? Or are you okay with that?
I always say cutes for monkeys and puppies.
Yes. There you go. I'm with you, Charlene. That's awesome. All right.
I think I would rather hear cute than lady.
Then lady? You don't like lady?
I don't know. To me, when somebody says lady, it's like I'm old.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, I mean, I am old, but
Right. Now, a girlfriend can say, "Oh, Paula, that looks so cute on you. Yes, wear that." I'm totally okay with that. But if a man tells me, "Oh, you look cute tonight," I'm like,
Well, wait till they say "sir" to you, then you really feel old. Yes, sir. You want to dance? Yes, sir. Okay.
I said that to Fred last night.
I know you did.
Fred, that's just a rate. I say that all the time, and it's just out of habit from living in the South.
I know, right?
Brett, I just apologized to you too, and I realized I was on mute because I've said it to you before too. I didn't mean it.
Promise you, I didn't go home crying about it. But thank you for your respect.
No, I agree with you, Paula, about the cute thing though, because I feel like it's either a friend zone, or I feel like the guy doesn't have enough confidence to just say what he probably thinks you look really lovely or really beautiful or whatever, but doesn't have the confidence to say it.
Okay. Okay, guys, for the men in the group as well, what are your thoughts on this? What are words you don't want to hear? Or thoughts on what I've already shared already?
I don't want to hear no.
Fred, neither do we.
You're awesome, Fred.
Oh
my goodness.
You know, Paula, you and I were talking about a little bit of that. I guess I'm maybe one of the people you talked to. Yeah, I don't think I ever call women cute or hot, because I agree with you. That's kind of a little bit derogatory to me, referring to a woman like, but I just never dawned on me that nobody wanted to be called cute. But yes.
Right. That's what.
Beautiful, lovely, gorgeous. How about that?
Sounds all good to me, Fred.
And we do have, the bottom. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
I just said, will you give a little lesson to all the men? Because you just, yes, that was perfect.
Yeah. Well, we need to learn. We need to understand those things. We communicate in whatever language the other person understands. So.
Right. Because
for me, anything that you say that's sincere is great. But I don't want somebody to say something to me because they feel like I want to hear it. I want it to be genuine. I want it to be sincere.
Yes. Genuine and authentic is the best way to do that, right? Oh, definitely. Don't just.
Well, I thought Paula's dancing was beautiful last night.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Fred. Yes. Now, there are men that will say, and we just said in the chat, where somebody will say, "Well, I'm still going to call a woman now." You can go right ahead, but you probably won't have a lot of success in dating women, at least in a healthy relationship, because when you devalue a woman, don't expect to be able to have a healthy relationship long term. That's basically it. But again, though, there are some women that are totally okay with that. There are some women that will be like, they're totally down with being called cute. There are some women that love being called hot. But I can guarantee you most of those women are insecure.
But something that Paul just said on the chat, which I would agree with.
Thank you for keeping up with that chat, because Lord help me.
Paul's correct on that too, that women have a tendency to use slangs of honey or babe or it goes back to communication and what we're used to, and speaking to your children. I said something at work one time to a coworker, and I didn't mean to call him, I think it was like hun, right? Mm-hmm. Something that I would say to my kids, I've asked them for something, they gave me something, and he looked at me and I said, "I am so sorry," because he kind of gave me the look like, what was that for? So sometimes I think that we can say things to men that could be as equally as offensive because they don't know us that well. Or if you're just learning to, you're just getting to know someone, I think that, like for me, kind of like what Paul was saying, if a guy says to me right off the bat, calls me like a baby or something like that, I'm thinking, ew, I don't know you well enough, right? Now, if I know somebody really well and things, we're clicking and things are progressing, and if they called me that, then I might be flattered by that. But I think we all need to be careful about kind of using pet names or, you know, annotations that you wouldn't generally do with someone you don't know very well.
Exactly. But just like I was talking to this one friend who was like, you know, don't call me sweet. You know, he just didn't like that. So I'm like, so then I had to start thinking, what would I say instead? Because I've said that so much to men, which probably totally explains why I've been 10 years without a serious dating relationship. But anyway, called too many men sweet, apparently. So anyway.
One more thing, and I've got to get going, but one more thing I wanted to share, since we're talking about communication, is, Paula, you made a comment that somebody said, hey, you automatically friend zoned him.
Right.
I don't know about y'all, and maybe it's just because I'm old. I'm not, my daughters will tell me, Mom, you totally friend zoned him. And I'm like, how did I do that? So I am totally unaware, apparently, of different things that you can say or not say that would totally put someone in the friend zone. I don't want to come across, and again, maybe it's my age, I don't want to come across as too forward or taking the lead in, I don't know how to even explain it without sounding totally stupid, but I think that that's something that I need work with, of knowing what to say or not to say that would be putting someone in the friend zone.
Which is why we're doing this tonight, and we will continue to do this ongoing, because I think this is important. We need to open up the communication between men and women so that we can know, you know, because if we don't know, remember, we're in a whole new realm of dating for those of us that were married previously, right? Like, we kind of took a break from dating. We got to take it for granted that we were with someone, right? And now we're back in a world of, what do we do now? You know, can you say this still? What's the best way to ask out somebody? Do we do that? Do they do that? You know, right? Are we not all trying to figure this out together, right?
But I always look at it as, it's so important to build a foundation of friendship. So if you're going in as a friend, you're not you're going in it with the intent of friendship, not what's the potential of a relationship or marriage. That's my view.
But I will tell you, there are a lot of people that date to mate. And quite honestly, I'm one of those. And I don't date just to have friends. I don't date for recreation. There are some people that do. I know of a lot of men and some women who will date multiple people, and they just love dating, and they just think they're going to make a career of dating because they just love being single and they love doing this. That's totally okay for them, and that is their path. My goal is to date to mate, okay, right? Like, so I'm dating to find that man in my life that I'm going to eventually marry. I'm being vulnerable, I'm just being honest, no, you know. And I'm not going to spend my time dating somebody just as a friend. And mainly because there's just a lot there. My time is very valuable. I love people and I love being able to be around people, but I have 2 callings and they're pretty time consuming, and I've got 2 jobs and I've got 5 kids and I've got, you know, so many other things going on in my life. So I'm like, there's just a lot to do that. But when it comes to communicating, I think that it's very, very, very important that we open up the communication, and that we don't need to enter a relationship hitting the ground running as if he's the one or she's the one. When you do that, it will end and fail just as fast as it started. I agree with you, Lori, that you do need to enter a relationship with friendship, right? You do need to build on that friendship and start the communication and expectations and all that. We build on that, but we lay that foundation and expectation.
Right, and just to clarify, yeah. I haven't been on a date in over 3 years, so it's not like I'm just looking for a date just to be friends. I'm just saying, when you're talking to people, when I'm first engaging in a conversation with someone, I guess in my mind, I don't go right there. My thing is getting to know that person, who they are, more of a formality in getting to know them as a friend without automatically putting the expectation on myself that, hey, this could be a possibility. To me, it just takes the heat off of me.
Right.
In my head.
I completely agree. And we don't want to approach it with 20 questions like you're in a job interview. I know some of us have been on dates where we've had to answer those 20 questions, and that's not always fun. So we'll talk about the way to approach dating relationships later. Tonight, I just mainly wanted to hit on just some different trigger words that we use to talk to people, or to just kind of establish that friendship, or to create a relationship without offending the other person, kind of thing. Does that make sense? So I want to hear from other men and women.
I was just going to say, as far as communication goes, I think that a lot of those words are going to change depending on where you are. And so I think sometimes, even though I don't like the word cute, that might be the best that the guy has to offer at that moment. Like, that might be his best because he's feeling really vulnerable. He's asked me out, like he might be doing his best. And so I think we have to be really careful that we're not being so critical of everyone. And just recognize it for what it is. And then as far as the words like the sweetie and the honey and the whatever, those might change depending on where you are. So like when I lived in England, I dated guys from lots of different countries. And so when I dated an Irish guy for a while, and those are just very culturally words he used. They didn't have it wasn't a term of endearment. It was just culturally words the Irish use in their everyday language to call, say, hey, sweetie, hey, honey. And at first, when I was going out with him, I thought that was like a term of endearment. And so I think sometimes we need to clarify meanings, clarify intentions, and part of communication should be to communicate a little bit better. But just also to recognize that people are doing their best, maybe not reading into compliments, because men and women are doing their best to communicate, and that might be all they have to offer. So
okay,
yeah.
All right, do we have thank you so much, Charlene, I appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing that experience. Okay, so we have a few other women and a few other men we haven't heard from yet. Would you guys like to offer some opinion or insight or other experiences that you've had?
This is not an experience that I had, but my parents have been married 51 years.
Okay.
They actually only dated for 2 weeks.
Oh my.
And my father was in the Air Force in Nebraska, and he communicated with my mom through letters, and they both still have their letters. So they learned how to communicate after they got married, and they've been married 51 years. And so I just wanted to share that. I know when I was married, I tried my very best to communicate with my ex-husband. It was not very successful, but you learn from your experiences and you move on.
Sure. Yeah. Now, getting married in 2 weeks, any of you feel anxiety whenever you hear that?
I do.
They only dated for 2 weeks. I'm sorry.
Thank you, because I was like, honey.
Yeah, they only dated for 2 weeks, but what my point was, they got to know each other through their marriage and the ups and downs and all of that.
Right. Yeah. Now, I will tell you that was a different era of time.
Oh yeah, it was.
Right. I mean, 51 years. We're talking a long time ago, right? So I'm 51, so trust me, that's a long time ago. They've been married as long as I've been alive. How about that? So yeah, it was just a different era, and people were more committed to the institution of marriage. Not that they're not now. It's just more women have felt empowered to be able to get out of bad relationships, and some men have felt more empowered to get out of bad relationships. Okay, so
well, I'll just say one more thing. When I got out of my marriage, I didn't have any kids. Now I'm not going to share that, but I didn't have any kids. And so I moved on. So when I left that night, I walked 1 mile down the road to my mother-in-law's house, called my mom, and I said, come get me. And she came and got me, but I didn't look back. I moved on. And that's one thing you made a comment about, that I moved on.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. We learn from our experiences and we go on.
Definitely. Definitely. Because if we keep looking back, we won't be able to move forward. We don't want our past to be able to hold us back. All right. Any of the men want to share? Any thoughts? So we got Brian. Who else we have up here today?
Okay. So the name, can I comment?
Go right ahead.
Okay. I think the name thing does change post like relationship versus dating. You know, dating, you better, you know, be a little more careful and adjust, and with you know, it can be like a label when you just are mistaken, you know. And I'm one of those types that doesn't always say the right thing, and I'm not always trying to say the right thing, but I try to say the honest thing. And that's the way I'm read. Sometimes a little bit direct. So be a little bit less direct and a little bit sweeter, but don't be called sweet, is my advice to you guys. Because, you know, to some guys, you know, the friend zone is not where you want to be if you're dating.
Whoa. What do you mean by be less sweet?
What I forgot what context I used the sweet word, but you know, you want to be sweet. You don't want to be called sweet, right? I think because like you said, that puts you in the friend zone. And if you're dating, you know, you prefer not to be there. You may end up there, which is still not a bad thing, but that's not your goal usually, right?
Okay, so
and I would suggest that you not be sweet. I think as women, we have to be careful how we use the word sweet. If that is something that puts you in a friend zone, we have to be careful how we use that, because vulnerability from a man, and I can only speak about myself, is extremely attractive.
Yes.
And if I'm with a man that is vulnerable with me, that's a crazy attractiveness.
Get him talking. He will be before long.
But no, I mean, I think that vulnerability is on both sides. I think that the point that I was trying to make earlier about me having high expectations on myself, and then the person that ultimately I end up with have high expectations, I feel like I can't ask something of someone or ask them to be something that I'm not willing to be. And I think that unfortunately we have gotten into a habit of wanting people to be what we want versus who they actually are.
Yeah.
Okay.
It takes more than one day to figure that out. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
More than two.
Bob's suggestion, if anyone's willing to keep up with this would be awesome, because we could all probably benefit from it. But if any of you saw Woody's comments, he says we need a list of words that put you in the friend zone.
Yeah. Just hand out the questionnaire when you get there.
I know, right? So anybody want to be taking notes on that one? I mean, I've had my notes are kind of all over the place, but yeah. So if anybody wants to do that, we know sweet's wrong to call a man that we want to be more than friends with. We know cute and hot are not good to call a woman. That's what we've gotten so far, right? All right.
Are there things? Can I ask a question to the men on the panel?
Please.
Or what are some things that we as women could say to you that let you know that we are interested in getting to know you better without saying, I'm ready to be in a relationship with you?
Great question.
Somebody else answer that one.
Paul Wilkerson says, ask questions. But what kind of questions, Paul? Brian, Fred, who else is up here? We have other guys on our panel. Any other, Trevor, any other guys want to be on the panel?
That's the question is, say your question is, what could you ask a man to give him the indication?
What could you say to a man that would indicate you want to get to know him more without necessarily say, hey, I want to be in a relationship with you?
Now, what kind of medication are you taking?
Yeah, that was good. That was funny. That was just kind of, it was funny. You have
Did
to,
you answer, how did you handle, so out of curiosity, how did you handle that question with her?
I laughed.
Wait, so if anybody is missing what they're talking about, in the chat, Fred had an experience in dancing with a woman at the Nauvoo conference last year, where she started asking him different questions about how old he was. What other questions did she ask? Oh, if you had a temple recommend, and what medications did he take?
And what calling I had in the church.
There you go.
I said, well, I asked, I said, well, are we getting married this weekend? Anyway, you just can't get offended. Just got to make fun of it. But I don't know. Well, I think whenever you inquire, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question because I don't know what to say.
Well,
give me the question again. I've lost my mind here a minute.
Are there words that would put you in the friend zone, or words that you would pick up on that, or phrases or something that we could say that would lead you to believe that we would be interested in you? Like I remember at one point learning, if you touched a guy's elbow, that was a form of flirting.
Yep.
All the touching stuff that we can do or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
I think we should ask Brian this question.
Brian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I was just coming off mute. I had to tell my little guy to be quiet real quick. So, definitely calling a guy sweet, especially when you're saying it over text or with the connotation like, "Oh, you're so sweet." That definitely says friend zone. Also, just avoid the word friend altogether. Like, don't be like, "Oh, you're such a good friend," because guys hear that and it's just like a brick wall dropping on them. Like, oh god.
What's the alternative?
Friend.
What do you want to hear?
So,
Right, I think
like
that's
spending
more of
time
what
with
I'm
you,
asking.
or I'm enjoying getting to know you, or hey, that'd be cool if we got together and did something. Just anything to just express interest. Like when he expresses interest, reciprocate that, mirror it. Like if he's like, I really enjoy getting to know you, you can just simply be, oh, I enjoy getting to know you too, and that's like a sign that you're interested. You don't even have to be creative. Just mirror what he says. I mean, he might catch on after a while, but
might.
How would you feel if a woman said, I feel safe around you?
I would feel very complimented.
That's a great question, by the way, Paula.
I would feel trusted.
It's good to be trusted. It just depends on the context,
Because
if
said
you're
too early
like out
on,
on a
would that
date,
freak you out?
No, I think it's context as far as like if you're out on a date and you're like walking around Atlanta or something, and you do the little things like opening doors for her and like making sure she's on the side of the sidewalk that's away from the street and things like that, and she's like, I feel safe with you. That's definitely a big compliment. But if you're like talking about your feelings and, well, it's hard to say, but there's just other times when it's more friend zoning. But yeah, if in general it's a positive thing. I know that didn't really help, but yeah, context really matters.
Well, I'm just like thinking to myself, like all of the things that I thought I was letting somebody know, hey, I'm interested in getting to know you more. I solidly throw them straight into the friend zone, and I'm not intending to do that at all.
This is why we're opening up this conversation. I'm loving it.
I don't think if someone says I'd like to get to know you better, to me it's a direct kind of a direct approach to saying, hey, I'm interested in you.
And Trevor said he likes that.
Yeah.
So, but Trevor is on the younger end, and Fred is on the older end. Kevin is on the older end. Brian, I think, is in there with.
Kevin's a lot older. Brian's a lot older than he looks.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle. I'm 40.
Okay. Yes, so you're right there with Trevor, I think. I think Trevor's a little younger than you are, but not a whole lot. All right.
We're
so,
still young, Paula.
What?
We're still young.
I know. Young at heart, right? All right. So so this is awesome. We've been able to open up some conversation here. Let's continue the communication next week. I want to go in a little deeper in our communication topic next week, so that we get. So be thinking of some other trigger words during the week that you feel like friend zones or makes you think that someone's interested in you. And then we'll also be talking a little bit more about communication and a relationship, and different topics that need to be discussed, different questions and how to ask them without them feeling like you're going through a 20-question drill like Fred experienced during a dance. Like, well, let's not do that during a dance, people. But anyway, so whenever we talk about that, I want us to go a little deeper. I want to go a little deeper into our discussion of relationship building and how to develop the relationship, how to develop in a healthy way, the questions to ask, what is good, what are turn-ons, turn-offs, that kind of thing, 2 different things. Make sense? Are we good with that? So thank you all for being with me tonight. I appreciate you guys coming in and participating on my panel. This is just so awesome. I appreciate you spending your time with me on a Sunday evening. It really means a lot to me for you to do that. And I appreciate those that add their comments to the chat. And I know I don't always get to all of them, but I appreciate those that were responding for me. Thank you for doing that. If you have any other ideas, thoughts, comments, questions for the week, please feel free to reach out to me, email, Facebook Messenger, whatever. And I welcome that because I love getting the feedback. And so I want this to be for all of us to be able to open up conversation, to understand each other better, because we are in a world of, some of the unknown kind of thing, and different eras, different times and whatever than we did whenever we were previously in a relationship or previously married. So,
Paula.
Yes.
Dale Kemp asked a question. He wanted for you to restate the topics for the future.
Sorry. Next week, we're going to go into more trigger words about what to say, not to say. So I want you guys to be thinking on that through the week. And then we're also going to go a little deeper into conversation about communication, of questions to ask, how to ask them, get to know you questions without being confrontational. What are ways of developing a relationship in a healthy way? Because I know that I've had some people tell me that they want me to discuss that, how to avoid somebody, men and women, in an abusive or controlling relationship. So we're going to go into the signs of that, what that looks like, how they come across, that kind of thing, and the ways to avoid that. So we may not get into all of that next week. I just know that next week we're talking about communication. And then we will continue on down the road from there. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you for spending Sunday evening with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
You guys are awesome. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.